Ooh, a long trip gone bad. Bad experience that we're going to be talking about right now. Hey everyone, my name is Chris and welcome to Real Rideshare Stories. And I got a crazy story that I came across on a Facebook post from a particular person that they had a really long trip, went over the border, and a few problems happened. So we're going to go over that. And we're also going to talk about what happens at the borders, especially for all the people that live across the borders or live at the borders. Yeah, sure. Live at the borders like I do. All right, so as you see on the screen, this is the story right here, and it goes word to the wise. If you accept a long ride, make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. I ended up taking a young lady up to the Canadian border this afternoon from Albany, the New York airport, where I was supposed to drop her off in an area where she could go through Canadian customs and meet her family on the other side of the border. Sounds rather straightforward. Instead, our ignorance of the layout at the border resulted us in driving through the actual Canadian crossing, with the end result being that I was briefly detained by Canadian officials as I didn't have a passport or enhanced license. I recently renewed and upgraded to the enhanced, just waiting on the photo card to arrive in the mail. Temporary doesn't count. And also a negative COVID test, both requirements to enter Canada. About 20 minutes and a piece of paper rejecting my entry into Canada later, I was cleared to turn around. U.S. Customs didn't give any issues and was back on the Northway, heading back home. Very unsettling experience, all for $158.18 plus $50 tip in the app. Hashtag never again. And if there is any levity to be had here, I can say I was too cool for Canada and they kicked me out. Oh, so that's a pretty crazy interaction of what had happened, especially not knowing the border crossings. Unfortunately, they are not clear. I live right near the border, and sometimes it's not very clear when it comes down to it. And if you don't know those border crossings, you could easily find yourself going into the country and trying to get back out. And it's just going to be a major headache for that time being, especially if you're trying to pick somebody up at the border, which does happen quite often, especially in my area, because, well, we have colleges and 19, 20-year-olds want to go up into Canada so they can drink at 19 and then they come back. So there is a lot of border crossing and border rides that you're dropping people off and picking them up at. But if you don't know where you're going, if you don't know what you're doing, if you're new to the game, then you could very easily cross the border and not know it. One of the big things too to note, if you're near the border or you could take a long trip that could be to the border, just know that you cannot actually drive beyond the border with a passenger in the car, because you can't do that. There's a lot of liability issues. There's a lot of insurance issues in that when it comes down to it. And going into another country is something that is not allowed on the platforms. So at least in this particular case, that passenger knew it and did it right to the border and then would have gone across the border themselves. But unfortunately, with it not being marked well, that was a hell of a headache. And then not only that, I-87, that is pretty much nothing from the border all the way through to about Lake George, Saratoga Springs area. And it's just mountains. And so the return trip is going to be awfully lonely. At least that driver did make a pretty good buck going there. And then the tip was pretty nice too. So it wasn't too bad. It's just that headache on the border is going to be a real problem. Now, one thing to note though, if you're near borders or could potentially be by a border in the event of a long trip, you just want to make sure you're aware of how they're set up, the points of entry, how to get into the other country, because sometimes it's not very clear and you could accidentally really easy take a wrong turn and wind up in the other country trying to get back. It's a whole mess. It's going to take at least 10, 15, 20 minutes, and it's a headache the entire time. And it's just something that you don't really want to do. So if you are near a border crossing, just get familiar with it so you know those different areas. know where the easiest to pick somebody up is. And then in the event that you do have a pickup or a drop off at that point, then at least you know where you're going to be, and it's going to help prevent a lot of headaches. All right, now I want to hear from you. Have you had a crazy long ride that you wanted to share an experience with, or have you had a border crossing experience? Comment below, let me know. And that's the end of the video. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell for notifications so you'll be notified every time new videos do come out. And as always, never drink and drive. Always tip your drivers, delivery drivers, and your shoppers. And we'll see you next time.